Hey guys, Jack Cypher here, back from a long hiatus, and this time I have something radically different than usual. Most times, swerving too much from your usual content can be really bad for the YouTube algorithm, so I've always held off till now. But while I was on my break, I realized I made this channel so I could have some fun. So rather than being limited in my creativity, I've decided to change things up today and talk about a new anime series that I'm absolutely loving. And you guessed it, we're going to be talking about Solo Leveling. And I'm going to give you all my thoughts on these first two episodes and what I felt about them. So get yourself a drink and some munchies and let's dig into the review. Solo Leveling was originally a South Korean web novel turned manhwa that achieved a lot of success. It just recently got its anime adaptation that started on the 6th of Jan 2024. Now, something very important to note, I have yet to read the series, so this video will strictly be anime only, so you don't need to worry about any spoilers that aren't in the anime. Any pictures in this video that are from the manhwa and so on are just a stylistic art choice I've decided to go with. I've known about Solo Leveling for a couple of years now as this manhwa gem that everyone who reads it thinks is amazing. So I was super excited and eager to hear that it was getting an anime. And now that half of the first season has aired, I can safely say that this could be one of the greatest new anime of the year. In my opinion, it's already taken the lead, strongly, and if the rest of the season continues as it has been, then this might be a runaway victory. Now let's start this off from where any great story should start, at the beginning. And Solo Leveling doesn't fail to deliver a great opening episode. We start episode 1 off with a short but quite great opening battle. In this battle, we get introduced to 4 S-rank hunters. Hunters are essentially the name of the superhuman warriors in this world, and from this scene, it gives us a small glimpse into the upper echelon tier characters that this universe has to offer, and what our MC will one day have to reach. One important note here that I'll go into a little bit more later, but thought it deserved a mention, was the instant gore that this series gives us. The anime doesn't shy away from showing us all the carnage that this world has to offer. It also isn't shy about how amazing the art in this series is. The characters themselves, but also the powers that they demonstrate, are super visually pleasing, and something that won't let up later down the track. After this little skirmish is quickly wrapped up, we get a small little lore dump. Essentially, a while back, magical dimensional gates started popping up all over the world, and from these gates, or dungeons if you will, sprang magical monsters. To combat these monsters, some of humanity gained superhuman powers to slay these creatures, hence their name being called Hunters. Now yes, if that's ringing a bell in your head, then that's probably because it sounds like a very similar premise to Hunter x Hunter, minus the dimensional gate thingies. And you wouldn't be wrong. Solo Leveling does incorporate similar devices as Hunter x Hunter. While similar to Togashi's greatest work, the hunters and monsters are mainly where the similarities end. I guess, however, you could say that they both share a more mature take on this simple trope. I guess from what I've seen so far, this would actually be Solo Leveling's main flaw, and that's that it suffers from a very basic fantasy concept mixed in with its isekai tendencies, making it lack a little bit of individuality. Now, personally, I reckon that it does those simple things incredibly well, and that its simplicity can actually hide some of the brilliance from you if you're not paying close enough attention. On top of all of that, you also have a very intriguing main character and animation that's top tier. You put all that in a package and you truly have something special. Something that very well might turn out to be a better isekai than things like Overlord and That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime. After the little lore dump, we finally get introduced to the MC that will be following on this journey, Jin Woo. Now, We'll stop right here again, and I just have to mention my pronunciation is absolutely awful, especially with Korean names. So if I've butchered any names, feel free to give me a ribbing down in the comments. Now, from what I do know about Jin Woo, is that he's a very caring and resilient person who has balls of steel. You see, in this world of solo leveling, if you awaken a power to fight these dungeon monsters, your potential and overall power is decided from as soon as you activate it. Meaning, no matter how hard you train, how much work you put in, that power you have will not increase. And wouldn't you know it, our lovable MC just happens to be the weakest hunter in all of history, being ranked as the lowest rank E. E being a letter to define how strong you are. And as you can possibly imagine, E is the lowest, followed by D, C, and so on. You get the picture. Now, we were talking about individuality before, and our MC being the weakest in the verse isn't anything new. There's a reason why so many stories do it. It's the most simplest way to show your MC's progression and growth. And hey, who hates an underdog? But I can hear you all saying, but Jack, I thought you said this world, you can't improve your strength. And you're right, I did. But that's a little something we can touch on later. So, we have our MC, the weakest character in the world. And what's he doing? Sitting at home being miserable about his lack of ability? No, he's out there on the front lines wanting to enter one of these dimensional gates, aka dungeons. Dungeons that are swarming with dangerous magical creatures and powerful dungeon bosses. But Jin Woo doesn't care about that. He'll happily risk his life because conquering these dungeons is very profitable, and Jin needs to make as much money as possible because his mother has recently collapsed and is in a coma in hospital. With no real skills to speak of, Jin needs to resort to this dangerous line of work to make some cash to get his mother's the medical treatment that she needs. Now this is how to write an MC. Despite being the legit weakest in the world, he doesn't let that bring him down. Doesn't let it depress him like it would so many people. He pushes those feelings aside because he needs to look after his younger sister, needs to make enough money to save his mother. Nothing will stop him from trying to accomplish that, not even his own weaknesses. While Jin Woo is preparing to enter the dungeon, we meet a friend of his who very likely will be the main female character and most likely Jin Woo's love interest. Her name is Ju Hee. Ju Hee is quite beautiful and radiates compassion. She's a B rank hunter that has an advanced skill in healing. Being the one of Jin's only allies, Ju Hee can see the true type of person that Jin is, and she very much worries for his safety, thanks to all the time she's had to use her power to heal him in the past. Thanks to all the injuries he's gotten from the dungeons that he so recklessly enters. Just going to show, despite Jin's good intentions, he just isn't strong enough to enter these formidable fortresses. Either way, Ju Hee's apparent gentleness goes very well with Jin Woo's kindness. Truthfully, Ju Hee reminds me of a less airheaded version of Orihime from Bleach, not only in terms of personality and power, but even in character design. Speaking of great character designs, side note, while all this is going on, somewhere else in Japan, or Korea I guess it would be actually, we get introduced to another character called Chan Hee. We find out she's an S-rank hunter that is deeply loved by the public. From what I've gathered, she's going to end up as the oldest sensei figure to our main character Jin Woo. But Jin's got his own problems, because his exploration down in the dungeon doesn't go well, and we get introduced to the changing point of this anime. This changing point is in the form of a colossal, mad, fucking god giant statue. And yes, I couldn't put it more elegantly than that. Basically, after Jin Woo and his party make it through the dungeon they're currently in, they come to a secret room where they encounter this massive god statue statue that's surrounded by lesser statues. And yes, God statue is what I'm going to be referring to it as from this point forward. As soon as the party encounters this statue, shit starts hitting the fan real quick. The god statue shoots out these instant kill death eye beams that vaporize a few of Jinwoo's party, striking utter fear into everyone's hearts. Despite the fear though, Jin is able to recognize a stone tablet by the god statue with commandments. The first is to revere God, the second to praise God, and finally the third to prove your faith to God. Pretty biblical hardcore rules that prove to be deadly once good old Mr. God statue starts killing another few people with his all-killing eyes. Our MC, though, showing great analytical skills, is able to deduce the way to escape this dungeon, and therefore this God statue is to follow the commandments that were listed. And he's able to go one step further and hypothesize that to get through the first commandment, they need to literally show the physical aspect of revering God, kneel down and bow their heads, showing the proper reverence. To the shock of the other party members, Jinwoo was correct, and briefly the god statue stops his pursuit. But before they can get too comfortable, Big Daddy statue decides to go really demonic, and throughout this, this massive, demented grin appears on his face, and he proceeds to get his giant ass out of his throne. The whole party immediately realizes that the now demonic god statue hasn't gotten up to give them a standing ovation. He's standing up to swat the insects that have invaded his throne room. He immediately starts stomping party members into paste. Nothing that they do can stop him. One even tries to worship and pray to him. But Daddy Demon God doesn't care about ants and immediately kills him. While everyone is running away, even more panicked and scared than they already were, Jinwoo, once again, able to stay rational enough to observe the lesser statues surrounding the demon god, while wielding instruments instead of weapons like their comrades. Jin rightfully predicts that running to these statues will complete the commandment of praising God and save them. The party listens to him and runs to the instrumental statues, but Jinwoo and Juhee have a problem. Since they were running together, they both came to the same instrumental statue, and Jin immediately realizes that the statue's protection only applies to one person at a time. So showing his bravery and selflessness, without any hesitation, he charges away from the security of the statue so Juhee can have the protection instead. Running for his life to the next nearest safety spot, with a demon god statue hot on his heels, Jinwoo tries to make it to safety, but forgets about the lesser statue soldiers, and one of them brings down a massive shield on him, completely cutting his leg clean off. Despite the grievous harm, Jinwoo stubbornly decides not to give up and manages to crawl himself to the last statue of protection, and with that, completes the second commandment, forcing the amped up demon god statue to sit his concrete ass down in his throne and revert back to his slightly less murderous, dopey looking god statue state. Now, the final commandment they face is the most confusing of the three, so bear with me on this. Basically, after Daddy sits back down, an altar appears, and the 6 remaining party members rightfully deduce that to prove their faith, someone will need to be sacrificed. The leader of the party, Mr. Song, agrees to be that sacrifice, since he thinks it's his responsibility, since he was the one that led them all here. So he quite bravely walks up to the altar to be sacrificed, but nothing happens. The party looks at Jinwoo for guidance, and he asks them to take him over to the altar. Keep in mind the dude is missing a whole ass leg at this point, but he's still functional enough to be the most dependable one out of all of them. After making his way over, he discovers that all 6 of them need to be in the altar to start this commandment off. Once they're all in there, 6 orange flames around them appear, and around those flames, a ring of blue fire appears, and the door to the dungeon opens. Now, with the opening of the door, the army of lesser statues begin to march on the surviving party members, as the group starts shitting their pants. Jin Woo declares that they must all stand in a circle and stare down the incoming statues as to not show fear and prove their faith. The idea behind it being like an old children's game. Despite the logic in his words and previous resume of being right, one of the party members chokes and runs out of the flames and out of the door. Now this is where it gets a bit confusing. Her escaping causes one of the orange flames to disappear and for the door to close a bit, which triggers the remaining party members' desperation to overpower their faith. Not their faith in the god statue, but their faith in Jin. And 2 more flee and escape the room, making it only 3 flames left. With half their number gone, the 3 remaining hunters don't have enough manpower to stay in a circle and stare the frightening disasters down. So the injured Jin Woo declares over Mr. Sung that he will stay behind because Ju Hee can't continue and he's only a burden with only 1 leg. Mr. Sung, despite his reluctantness, agrees to the practicality of it and escapes with Ju Hee, causing the doors to close and leaving our MC in the belly of the beast. Now, some questions here. If they all stayed in the circle, would Jin's hunch be proven correct? And would they all have survived? If that's the case, then the others being able to escape with no consequences is a little bit odd, because from the start of this commandment, it was all about faith, and they happily broke that to save their own lives. So I'm actually hypothesizing here that maybe they've been cursed or something like that, and that later on that this curse will result in their deaths for not being able to have that faith. Or I could just be flat out wrong with that, but I reckon it could be a very interesting story beat either way. Anyway, back to the story. After they all leave, the statues absolutely go to work on Jin Woo, cutting off other limbs and impaling him with a spear, before dumping him straight on the altar unceremoniously. Once again, just showing great levels of gore which just go to elevate the moment. All of this torment is happening to Jin, and he reflects back on the unfairness of it all. He monologues about how difficult being the weakest hunter in history is, how he tried so hard to be better, not just for himself, but for his family, and that the superficial words of those that take everything for granted is just selfish. You can really feel the frustration that he must be feeling in this moment. He's put on a brave face all this time, but just like anyone, he doesn't want to die. He doesn't want to be weak. These last desperate thoughts of his causes the whole story to shift. Because in that moment, a screen appears in front of him with the words, "Courage of the weak. You have been selected to be a player. Do you accept?" And there you have it, folks. That's how episode 2 ends, with a tease. To summarize, I reckon these first 2 episodes are brilliant. They introduce us to a world and its systems, sprinkles in some important characters that we need to know about, gives us a fantastic view on who our main character is, while showing off the amazing art that this series has to offer. And the best part about it all is that they do it without any unnecessary fat. It's all detailed, compact, and relevant from what you need over the beginning of an epic saga. Now, I would love to go into Jin's newly discovered power, but I think I'll do that next episode. I seriously underestimated how long this script was going to be. Though, to be fair, that's just another sign of how good this series is. I could probably make an hour-long video on these first 6 episodes easily. Anyway, it's good to get back in the swing of things. If you like this video, make sure to give it a like and subscribe. And I've been your boy, Jack Cypher, and until next time, see you later.